بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا محمد وعلى آله الطاهرين المعصومين المنتجبين اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. Sisters and brothers, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to another recording sessions of the topics that we used to record on Sunday morning. The themes of these programs primarily were the stories of the Prophet, and we have reached now the level out of the sequence of the prophets that we have covered. The one of the most significant and unique prophets in the chain of prophethood, and that is Prophet Ibrahim. We covered pre-flood prophets and few of the post-flood prophets. And the second prophet, Ulul Azm, according to the list of grand prophet, is Prophet Ibrahim. His name has been mentioned. One thing I want to clarify, that we simply don't have enough time to spend for an in-depth analysis of the life of any of the prophet, beyond what I call scratching of the surface and some biographical information and some unique, typical or characteristics that are associated with them. With the prophets such as Hud, Saleh, these kind of approach or assessment may not be problematic, but when it comes to prophet like Prophet Ibrahim and few other prophets that are coming after him, this brief analysis will not be sufficient to give you the full scope of what Quran covers and the space that Quran gives to the life of this individual. His name has been mentioned over 70 times in the Holy Quran, in various chapters as well as passages of the Holy Quran. And he's been given the grand title of Khalilullah, close friend of Allah. He's considered to be the patriarch, the great patriarch of all the monotheistic faith, Judaism, Christianity, of Islam, because not only of his character, unique character that Quran exemplifies, that says the Prophet Ibrahim represented everything that a balanced society should have. إن إبراهيم كان أمة قانتا لله حنيفا. He was a believer in monotheism, and his characters embodied the entire characteristics of a balanced society. And also he is considered to be one of the prophets that we should emulate in our life and follow as Uswa Hasana. He is thought to be to somebody that has fulfilled all the commandment and gone through a number of trials in his life, and ultimately through unwavering faith and absolute submission to the command of Allah has reached the status of imama, which is a unique state of being totally obedient to Allah. His place of birth and the year of birth is among those that are debated between historians and scholars. It appears that there is some kind of a consensus that his place of birth was in Iraq, close to Babel or Hilla today, and the year of birth, they say about 2,000 years before the current era. So if we have 2024, 2000 before it becomes 4024 to 4050. They claim that his parents migrated from the lower Mesopotamia, the Rafidain in Iraq, to slightly upper Mesopotamia, which is around Babel and Hilla, which is today. He died at the age, again, there is a dispute between whether they say an age range of 175 to 200 years. And his resting place at the moment is in Hebron, the Ibrahimi mosque that the Zionists are trying to destroy and take over. Repeatedly have set mobs to go in and break things around. And as usual, if we look at the history of the prophets, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends them, there are either a group of individual or one individual that typifies everything evil within the society that stands in opposition to the position of the prophets. This guy in Ibrahim's time was Namrud, the king of the area, and who claimed to be God, similar to Pharaoh in Musa's time, claimed to be God. And there are some challenges and conversations between Ibrahim and Namrud regarding how Ibrahim tried to undermine this claim of divinity by Nimrud. And he said that my God is the one that gives life and removes life. Namrud said that I give life and I remove life by having the power to kill people. So if I kill someone, I'm removing life, and if I allow that person to be alive, then I'm giving that. So Ibrahim comes back, well, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, my God is the one that makes sun rise from the east and settle in the west. If you can, try to do the reverse. And obviously he wasn't. One of the major debate about the life of Prophet Ibrahim is what was the name of the father, and whether the father, in Surah An'am 76, a name is mentioned. إِذْ قَالَ إِبْرَاهِيمُ لَأَبِيهِ آزَرَ. What the conversation between Ibrahim and the word Abih, which technically in Arabic language is used for father as well as for grandfather, uncle, stepfathers, or somebody who looks after a child. And this has become the source of differences between Sunni scholars and Shia scholars. There is a concept in the Shia theology that the ancestors of a prophet should remain monotheistic and believing in one God, or Hanif. And since the story of Ibrahim, there is a reference to a mushrik, Abihi Azar, to a mushrik father, then this concept challenged by the Shias and used literally by the Sunni community. Shias claim that it is not the father. Azar is a person, the father of Ibrahim, which was named either Taruh or Tarh, died at the early age, and it was his uncle that looked after him. And technically in Arabic you can use the word father for a person who looks after you. Historians state, particularly the Shia scholars, they underscore this claim with the prayer that around the end of his life, Prophet Ibrahim says, رَبَّنَا اغْفِرْ لِي وَلِوَالِدَيَّ وَلِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ. That Prophet Ibrahim is not going to ask for his parents if they for ghufran and forgiveness if one of them is mushrik and non-believer. As historians claim that astrologers somehow warned, this is the similarity between the story of Ibrahim and the story of Musa, that in the story of Ibrahim, astrologers reminded him or warned him, there is a child going to be born soon that would undermine your power and your kingdom. So he commanded that any child to be born in that particular year to be killed. And Ibrahim's mother took him to a cave close by and left him over there for 15 months. And finally took him out when he was old enough and could not be established exactly when he was born, and took him home during the night. So the story of Musa is the same thing, that Pharaoh was warned that somebody is going to be born out of the Bani Israel, male children, that is going to undermine your power. So he commanded that all male children to be newly born to be destroyed. The place where the historians claim to be the place of birth of Ibrahim, Babel, was the center of Sumerian civilization, that after the fall of Sumerian civilization, somehow that area was buried by sand. And in the 19th century, the excavation by archaeologists in Iraq, suddenly they came across the outline of a city and they began to dig around it. Now there are pictures of the city that was called Ur, close to Hilla, and it is claimed the place of burial for Prophet Ibrahim. During his Quran spends ample time and space, gives to the early part of his the life of Prophet Ibrahim as a child, or at least as a teenager, when he confronts the idol worshipping of the community and says, what kind of God is this that you are worshipping, that cannot respond, cannot talk? And ultimately he destroys or gets an axe and goes into the place where they are kept, the idols are kept, and breaks them and puts the axe on the shoulder of the biggest. When people find out, they bring Ibrahim for questioning, public questioning, and Ibrahim presents to them, why don't you ask the argument? I think it's what some scholars say, trying to encourage them to ask themselves, how is it that they are worshipping stones that they have crafted, and then that they cannot answer them and defend themselves? That was the whole idea. That was the beginning of his argument, and then obviously he built on this argument when the idea of the stars, the moon and the sun was identified by him, kept switching. This cannot be the God because it vanished. Moon is the God because it's lighter. Then moon disappeared. That cannot be the God. Then sun is the one, and ultimately no, sun cannot be the God. And then a kind of Socratic approach, pushing the society to go back and ask themselves some critical question if they can find an answer for it. Now, with regard to this kind of questioning and ultimately destruction of the idols, led to the decision by Namrud and the society to organize probably one of the biggest, according to historians, one of the biggest fire on earth, for Ibrahim to be thrown into it and be burned. We get to the story, to the mu'jizas and the miracles of his life a little bit later on. He married his aunt's daughter, which is his cousin Sarah, at the early age. And according to historians, claim that Sarah was the brother of Prophet Lut, a sister of Prophet Lut, that later on was given responsibility by Prophet Ibrahim to go to the city of Sodom and propagate Islam, or monotheistic belief to them. And so Sarah was the sister of Prophet Lut. Then, because she was not able to conceive and have a child, the second miracle of his life, having a child at the old age of 80 or 90, when he asked Allah for a son, and the second, it was conceived. The first son, Ismail, was born from a mother, Hajar, which historians spend huge amount of time as the relationship between Hajar, Sarah, etc. Some historians claim that after Hajar and Sarah, Prophet Ibrahim married twice and had many children from these two wives, Qantura and Hajuni, and we consider it to be part of the what we call Israelite ahadith that has come into the text of history. Out of the close to 70 or if not more time that frequently Ibrahim has been mentioned, there is one surah, chapter of Ibrahim dedicated to him, chapter 14, in the same manner that there was a chapter for Prophet Hud that early on we discussed it. Surah Ibrahim falls between Surah Al-Ra'd and Surah Al-Hijr. Because of his two sons, well-known two sons, Ishaq and Ismail, he is considered to be the patriarch of both branches of faith, the Israelite branches as well as the Islamic branch. The Israelite branch, Yaqub, the son of Isaac, we have the descendant of Isaac. We have Yaqub, Yusuf, Dawood, Sulaiman, Ayub, Musa, Harun, and Isa from his mother's side. These are all descendants of Ishaq. And from the Ismail's side, Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, that will be descendant of Ismail. So he's considered to be the grand patriarch of both Bani Israel prophet as well as the Muslim. The unique characteristic that we see Quran presenting for Prophet Ibrahim as most in-depth and complex, that traverses many layers of self-purification in search of truth and annihilation of the self, the soul, and in the presence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This spiritual journey has intrigued the Urafa and the scholars of Irfan to spend huge amount of time analyzing the life of Prophet Ibrahim. Most scholars of Irfan, they move step by step analyzing this, and even they say, for example, what we call the Batini approach to the interpretation, not the literal approach. They say the sun, the moon, the stars represent three different characters of the soul that he had to go through them. The fire that he had to go through is a fire of purification of the soul, because within that it tested his tawakkul ala Allah and submission to the command of God. With regard to, for example, one of the miracles that he asked Allah to show him how he resurrect the dead. رَبَّ أَرَنِي كَيْفَ تُحْيِي الْمَوْتَى in Surah Baqarah, verse number 26. قَالَ أَوَلَمْ تُؤْمِنْ قَالَ بَلَى وَلَكِنْ لِيَطْمَئَنَّ قَلْبِي, so that my heart stabilizes. This is interpreted as some kind of a spiritual cleansing and a tazkiyah that has to go through until Ibrahim reaches that unique position. With regard the miracles that I talked about, Prophet Saleh, which is the predecessor of Prophet Ibrahim, had a unique she-camel and the calf that was Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created from the mountain. And that remains associated with Prophet Saleh. With Prophet Ibrahim, there are a number of mu'jiza and miracles associated with him. Number one, naturally, is the fire. وَقُلْنَا يَا نَارُ كُونِي بَرْدًا وَسَلَامًا عَلَى إِبْرَاهِيمَ. Anbiya 69, and that when he was catapulted into the fire, the hadith says that Jibreel came to him and said, Ya Ibrahim, do you need anything? And Ibrahim's response, to show his absolute trust in Allah, from you, nothing. As far as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He knows my situation. I'm not asking. You see how the scholars of Irfan focus on this, that absolute trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That although Jibreel was commanded to see if Ibrahim wants anything, to test him, another test to go through, فَمِنْ كَفَلَا, from you, nothing. But as far as asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I'm not going to ask, because it is everything in the presence of Allah subhanahu. So that itself, the miracle of turning the fire into some kind of tranquil position and peaceful position, where Ibrahim comes out of it unscathed, is one of the unique position given to him. Another mu'jiza that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala shows Prophet Ibrahim, again, Arafah spent huge amount of time as to why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chose and commanded Ibrahim only 4 birds. And what are these 4 birds? A huge number of debate between Arafah and scholars regarding the meaning of these 4 birds. To chop them into pieces and distribute them in 4 different mountains, and then call them and see how these birds are resurrected and they come back to him. So that is another mu'jiza for him. The third mu'jiza, he was shown the kingdom of heaven and earth, according to a verse in the Holy Quran, An'am 75, وَكَذَلِكَ نُرِيَ إِبْرَاهِيمَ مَلَكُوتُ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ وَلِيَكُونَ مِنَ الْمُوقِنِينَ. For even a strengthening of yaqeen and belief that he has, there is scholars debate whether this showing of the kingdom of heaven and earth was spiritual or physical. So if it is physical, it means that Prophet Ibrahim had Mi'raj before Prophet Muhammad had Mi'raj, or a similar Mi'raj, ascension to heaven. With regard to another mu'jiza, the story of Ismail, although if we look at some Hebraic literature, different sources, they claim different things. But from our tradition, because Prophet Ibrahim asked Allah for a son, he did not wait. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala granted his wish. Hajar did have a child, a son, but immediately after the birth of Ismail, Allah commanded him to take Hajar and the newly born baby into a desert, which was then Mecca, and leave them there and come and go back. And the whole story of Safa and Marwa and everything else came out of this story, where Hajar was left over there with Ismail. Then 12 or 13 years later, Prophet Ibrahim is commanded to go back and visit the mother and the child. Ismail is a teenager at the time. Now just imagine the father has been deprived or commanded not to go back for 12 and 13 years, and the love that and strong bonding that exists between him and the child. As soon as he comes back, he has to go through a different trial. The command to take Ismail for sacrifice, and the whole story of sacrifice that existed. فلما بلغ معه السعي قال يا بني إني أرى في المنام أني أذبحك. 3 times, 3 nights, consecutive nights, saw this dream. فانظر ماذا ترى, what is your opinion? قال يا أبا تفعل ما تؤمر. Even Ismail was absolute submission at the teenage level. And then the debate at the moment exists, because if we go to Surah Safat from around 101, where the story of Ibrahim is outlined, and until we get to 108, which this issue of sacrifice of the child is mentioned, there is no mention of a name Ismail, but says قال يا بني, kind of without mentioning Ismail. Some scholars, particularly the Jewish scholars, say because the name of Ismail is not mentioned, it must be Ishaq. But if we look at the structure of the verses in Surah Safat, that after the event of sacrifice or attempted sacrifice and replacement of Ismail by a ram, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saying that you have fulfilled, gone through the test properly, فَبَشَّرْنَاهُ بِإِسْحَاقٍ, issue of glad tiding of Ibrahim, it comes with Ishaq, comes after the whole process of attempt to go through the sacrifice. So we are, according to our ahadith, it's quite clear that it is Ismail, it's not Ishaq, although the Hebraic literature and Jewish scholars insist that it is Ishaq, because they want to create this unique race for themselves and the favorite son. Another character and another unique qualities that is attributed to Prophet Ibrahim is the building of Kaaba and the whole process of Hajj. And those of you who remember in the previous years when we were talking about tafsirs of Quran, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reprimanded the Quraysh for forgetting their relationship with Prophet Ibrahim, and if they have any blessing that they are receiving, it's because of fulfillment of the prayers and the pleading of Prophet Ibrahim and promises that Allah granted to Prophet Ibrahim, that those who submit to the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala within the descendant of Ibrahim as Prophet Ismail will be granted peace, tranquility in the place which is Mecca. So they are benefiting from the prayers of Prophet Ibrahim. He, after the whole issue of Namrud, fire and everything else, he migrated to Palestine and stayed there in Al-Khalil, which his burial site is there, Ibrahimi Mosque in Al-Khalil, which at the moment is in occupied Palestine. If you look at the Jewish tradition, they add something to this story, that once he came to Palestine, there was drought in the area, so he had to travel to Egypt. And once in Egypt, the Pharaoh of Egypt was attracted to Sarah, the wife of Prophet Ibrahim. And instead of stating that it is his wife, he somehow gave his wife to Pharaoh by claiming that she is his sister. So Pharaoh took his wife as his wife and stayed with him until few months or years later, when through a dream Pharaoh find out that what has happened and reprimanded Ibrahim for it. This is that exists in the literature, and Allama Tabatabai in tafsir of this surah clearly states that if you are searching for anything to prove that the Torah has been fabricated, and see, this is one of the stories, the idea of claiming that a major prophet, a major patriarch would give his wife to Pharaoh under the pretext of his sister to be married by Pharaoh. So these kind of stories that are similar to the stories that we had about Nuh with alcohol and getting out of control, etc., etc. Similar stories, this is one of them. So, but as I said earlier, the life of Prophet Ibrahim, now Orafa focus on it and assess it from irfanic and mystical point of view. But we as Muslims, we really need to spend huge amount of time going through thorough analysis of his life and learning a lesson from all of these steps that Prophet Ibrahim took in the early stages of his life and latter part of his life, and how he became such worthy of such unique title as Khalilullah, and ultimately reached the status of Imama, which is absolute purified heart, and which is necessary for elevation. Inshallah, if we get a chance in the future, we might be able. But the journey of Sayr and Suluk that led him to this stage, that Orafa spent huge amount of time to ultimately reach his Imama, is something that very little literature we have. Few anecdotal ones in the Orafas and mystical scholars, but a detailed analysis of it is required, which at the moment is absent. Let me stop here and then we answer questions. Thank you very much. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.